AVC John here. This video is going to be a response to a thread that Brett did a few weeks ago about great albums on CD that had not made it onto vinyl. And I've got every plan to do that, and probably still will do in the next couple of 3 weeks. However, over the past week I've been thinking about something else, and that was lost albums. Now, it seems to me there are a number of reasons why albums become lost. Firstly, it's by an artist and the actual product isn't very good, and then subsequently one of the members of that band becomes famous with another band and then they resurrect the previous career. Or it might be because they're a relatively well-known artist who are on the wane, then they do an album and nobody will pick it up. Or it might be a very well-known artist who does something a bit avant-garde and are not happy with the production or something like that, and they decide to scrap it. So there are no true, real lost albums. There usually is a reason, and sometimes it can be that they're just rubbish and nobody wants to listen to them. Anyway, there are a few genuinely great lost albums, and I've been fortunate in the last 2 weeks it's come into my possession, two of them. Two genuinely great lost albums. Now, I've raved on my videos in the past about the packages that Keith Jones and Fruits de Mer Records come out with, and they're always an event. We had there was a delayed release a few weeks ago because it was actually delayed because the packaging of one of the albums was so sophisticated and difficult for them to get through. Anyway, eventually it did come. I love opening them. I love sitting there listening through. But in there, one of the albums, normally I feature all of them, but I'm just going to feature one of the albums because it falls into the category of Great Lost Album. And it is this, by this band, a band called Tor Peders. And the tragedy is that apparently a number of years, and this is a lost album because of tragedy. So Tor Peders were a band who recorded, I think they're Swedish actually, I should have just checked that. I think they're Swedish, but they're definitely Scandinavian. Now, the first thing is the actual album itself. It's called, and I need to remind myself because I can't quite read. It's called Brev Fran Ederstorp, and it's entirely instrumental. Now, it does sound like an album that was recorded in 1970, and it's got it feels like a bit folksy. The production sounds like that. But the real tragedy is that the band were in discussion with Keith from Fruits de Mer about maybe releasing this. They did release a single, but the real tragedy is that it never was released because shortly after completing recording, Jonas Redmo, the sort of leader and the guitarist, was killed in a road accident, and that was it. It just wasn't released. But this is a really exciting instrumental album. The first track, you just think, and it makes you smile. The actual production is fantastic. It's sort of like it's embossed, but it's like veins, or little veins all over the cover of the sleeve. It's a brilliant photograph, and as is usual, lots of photos of the band, including Jonas on there. If I can find him, there's a picture of him. But I would recommend this to anybody, and it is I've been listening to it on my new turntable, of which more later on another video. But you get the usual. There's the extra single in there, lovely white vinyl, and then the album itself, I'll just show you, is like a mottled, marbled grey. But just a genuinely excellent and genuinely lost album because the band members didn't want to carry on without their leader, and that is entirely understandable. So that is the first one I've been listening to. Heartily recommend that to you. I'll try and remember to put a link at the bottom of the video to Keith's website to look that up. Second one is, I'd like to take you back to 1983. Wake me up before you go, I'm not planning on going solo. Well, if I was genuinely committed to the video maker's art, I would now be wearing 1980s garb and be dressed a bit like somebody out of The Wedding Singer, but I'm not committed. I want to take you back to late 82, 1983. Paul Weller's decided he's going to split the jam up. That's my phone, well, that's pinging. He decided to split the jam up, and he does one final single called Beat Surrender, and there's a female backing singer on there which catches our eye, or Who Catches Our Eye. Back then, all we did was basically go out, go to the pub, catch a few gigs. We occasionally watched Top of the Pops. We always watched the Tube, and then we talked about it when we got together in an evening when I was at college or when I was back with my friends at the occasional weekend. And then the first Style Council single came out. Or was it the first one? Let me just have a quick note. Speak Like a Child was the single, and again the same backing single was on there. Now, because we were and she was pretty young, and she caught our eye, and it transpired that this was a singer called Tracie Young, and she'd won a competition that Paul Weller, who'd got delusions of creating a new Motown called Respond, and he'd recruited Tracie as one of the first 3 or 4 people. Now, later in that year, an album was released, and it was called, I'll just grab a copy of it because I should have got it out. It was one of the first releases on Respond. It was called Far From the Hurting Kind. Now, this really is a record for completers. It came out in, I think it was 83, it might have been 84. Let's check that it was 83. No, it was 84. There were a couple of singles on it. One that was called which one was the one that I can't remember which one Paul Weller wrote. So there might not have been a single on there. There is a single on there called I Love You When You Sleep, and it was possibly the worst 7-inch single ever written by Elvis Costello. It's okay. I picked this up to a record fair a few years ago, largely because I could remember her being associated with Paul Weller. And she had a couple of singles and then pretty much disappeared out of sight. And then I was reading in Record Collector magazine last week that a new CD had come out by Tracie Young called No Smoke Without Fire. And it sounded really interesting because it was billed as a lost album. So I quickly got on Amazon to have a quick read up about it because it just sounded interesting, and it said it gives it a good write up, and it says it sounds like Everything But the Girl meets the Style Council, so that piqued my curiosity. Anyway, this came a couple of 3 days ago, and I have not stopped listening to it. This is absolutely outstanding. And apparently the story was that Respond Records, Paul Weller became bored of it and closed it down in 1985. So going into 1986, Tracie had then signed with Polydor and started recording this album. Now there are 10 tracks on here, and they're not the exact 10 that she recorded exactly the way she wanted to do, because the sleeve notes are absolutely outstanding as well, written by her earlier in this year, March. And I think there's another 7 tracks on there which are remixes of The House That Jack Built was the track I was trying to remember and I couldn't remember, and that was jointly written with Paul Weller. And there is absolutely no reason why this album should not have come out in 1986, and I don't understand why Polydor never released it. Apparently in 2009 Cherry Red Records got in touch with Tracie and asked if she would mind them re-releasing Far From the Hurting Kind, and she said to them, well actually there's another album that's never come out. So they started working on it, getting the tapes together, remastering it, to the extent that they can't even remember all the musicians on it because she didn't take notes. But I've just made a few notes about this that I want to tell you about. There were 2 singles off this album, one called Invitation and the other one called I Can't Leave You Alone. Both were flops. The highest one made it to number 60 on the UK chart. I don't even believe it was released anywhere else. The big mistake was that the absolutely outstanding track on it is called Fingers Crossed, which is track 3, which I would urge you to listen to. I would put it in the video, but it's not on YouTube, it's not anywhere. I would have to sample it and then post it in there, I guess. But I'm not going to do that. I'll let you find that out. The real point I'm making is, and she says it herself, and I want to probably read that bit out about it as well, is this is not something that's come up by a failed 80s artist that just redid something. This, as she says, my second point is that although much of this album is new to listeners, it is nearly 30 years old. So if you're expecting something contemporary or new, that's not what's happening here. But it was an important project for me. And it does say, and listening to it just takes you right back to that period of my life where I was very happy, I was very young and just enjoying life. And it's for 80s lovers really. I'm thinking Adam Lee. Adam, you'll like this album. I'm thinking Billy Cryoni, people like that. And if you're thinking the original new wave of English jazz, which was, one album by everything but the girl essentially, one album by the Style Council, and probably the first album by Sade. But there's also, you can feel a bit of the Spandaus in there with the saxophone. And I was trying to think of a few other people, maybe Lisa Stansfield, or maybe Voice of the Beehive, all of those sort of bands. And maybe the only problem with Tracie was that she, and she did style herself that for her first two albums, was that she probably sounds a bit like a lot of people, and maybe that was what put Polydor off. But I've really been enjoying it. I'll leave it there. I'll urge you to buy this. It was only £8 odd from Amazon and it comes the next day. You can probably get it cheaper elsewhere, but it's very summery. It's perfect for the weather we're having here. Final thing, just a quick shout out to Rob Paniques. Rob's everybody's friend here in this great community. He's not gone through the best of times recently, and I hope you're doing okay, Rob. And on that note, I'll finish, but I am going to do a few more videos because I've got quite a list of things that I want to cover in the next couple of weeks. So take care, VC, and I'll see you soon.